Hello and welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Monday, June 2nd. There are 89 days until the Texas game and 180 days until the Michigan game. I'm Tony Gerdeman here with Kevin Noon. Tom is out on assignment. And Kevin, if any of those numbers were wrong, it's because Tom gave them to me wrong, which we know he already did since he wrote that Monday was June 3rd. So if any of those countdown numbers are wrong, have you ever sabotaged somebody on purpose like Tom just tried to do to us? And maybe it succeeded. I don't know about the countdown days, but certainly this is the fourth, I think, third or fourth start of this show, thanks in part to Tom.
No, I don't sabotage people I like. Now, I would sabotage Tom, but I don't sabotage people I like.
Fair enough. So we are here. Tom, like I said, Tom's out for a while. He will be back, but the show must go on. And there's always stuff to talk about. There's Camp Week coming up. There's official visits that we'll be recapping as well. Also, something that happened this weekend is, Kevin, the national magazines have started to hit the shelves. I found one at Barnes & Noble. I think others have found theirs at other Barnes & Noble. So the Athlon and the Lindy's national magazines are both out. I think the Phil Steele digital maybe hits next week to the people who have purchased early. So maybe we can talk about that next week. But what we wanted to do, because sometimes we complain about some stuff. So I thought, you know what? Let's complain about the magazines and let's talk about some of the things that they got wrong about Ohio State. Now, has the season played out yet? No. So they may be right. I don't think they will be, Kevin. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. And we'll go back and forth and discuss some of those things that they got wrong. I'll go first because they have their Heisman watch list, and they have, this annoys me to no end, Arch Manning number one. Then they have Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik. And then they have the most proven of that group, Jeremiah Smith. And I think that's kind of wrong, understanding that he's a receiver, but he is so well known right now that half the battle is won for him. But I think maybe the thing that bothers me most is Drew Aller is fifth. Like, Jeremiah Smith and Drew Aller should not be touching on a Heisman list like that. So that was the first thing. And it was maybe like 8 pages in that I think they got wrong about the Buckeyes. I think Jeremiah Smith will either be higher or much further away from Drew Aller in the Heisman balloting.
I have a huge issue with all of this preseason hype that Garrett Nussmeier is getting. And, I have a buddy who covers LSU, and he's like, I don't know what you got against this kid. I'm like, generally, if I say a kid's bad, he's Jack Cohn. And I'm generally proven right. But, I don't get it. I have no faith in Brian Kelly. I have no faith in that offense there. So it just seems to be a real mess there. Jeremiah Love, the Notre Dame running back, number 10. I feel he's too low. Julian Sain was thrown on the list just because you look really stupid if you don't have him on the list if he turns into something. But then again, going into last season, there was a lot of, wow, Will Howard, we just need to put him on the list or whatever. And we never really had any real Will Howard discussion. Yet Will Howard went out and led the Buckeyes to a national championship. So it does show some of the unevenness of it all. But yeah, I think it's wide open. I think it is so wide open this year. There's nobody on the list that I'm just like, oh, okay. I mean, I've been beaten over the head with Arch Manning. I get it. We're gonna see him week one. I'm either gonna be like, yep, he's pretty good, or told you. But no, there should be no touching. There should be no adjacency between Drew Aller and Jeremiah Smith, other than they are both human males, and that's about it.
All right. So was that your first one, just the Garrett Nussmeier of it all, or do you want to talk about something else? Because you've got quite the list.
I got quite the list. I mean, it may not be Festivus, but I got problems with you people, and my problems is with Lindy's, and I haven't gone through my Athlon yet. My first issue with the Athlon magazine is they found a substance lighter than paper to print it on, and that's an issue I have with Phil Steele magazine too. Is that the ink is terrible on that. And if you just sit there and you're like, I think I may be a little sweaty, the whole magazine runs. So the first one I have here is they talked about top transfers, and they had it broken down into transfers and non-quarterback transfers, and nowhere on there did I see Bo Atkinson or Max Clare transferring into Ohio State. So you would think that that would mean that Lindy's would be very bullish on Ohio State. We'll get into this in a minute. They're probably not super bullish, but I'm not exactly sure how neither Atkinson nor Clare made the list, and there certainly were some questionable ones that did make it in instead of two slam dunks.
That kind of goes along with my next one, in that they have their transfer portal winners and losers, and it's 5 of each, but they didn't have Ohio State among the winners, and this is where we start talking about nitpicking, because everybody that they have listed maybe picks some people up, but I think when you go and you get a left tackle and you go and you get arguably the best tight end in the portal and the best defensive end in the spring portal, then I would consider Ohio State one of the winners. Maybe not. Maybe they didn't make the cut for the top 5, and I don't know what the RPI is on all of that. But I think I came away with Ohio State being one of the winners of the portal, and that's not even mentioning like a Phillip Daniels or Logan George. That Logan George certainly going to be part of the defense, you would think, but I would consider them winners. They're winners, LSU and Texas Tech, who signed everybody under the sun. You can understand that. Auburn and landing former Oklahoma star quarterback Jackson Arnold, and I'm using the term star loosely, kind of like when people say a shooting star. That's a very loose definition of a star. In fact, it's an inaccurate definition of a star. Oregon is one of the winners, and Oklahoma is one of the winners. Oklahoma, famously losing star quarterback Jackson Arnold, still a winner because they landed a better quarterback in John Mateer. So maybe Ohio State would be a winner if they had landed any kind of quarterback at all. Were they winners last year?
Brick handler or whatever, the Eli brick handler or bricklayer or one, Freemason. I don't know what the hell his name is. Something with bricks.
That must have been post going to print. So we can forgive them for not having Eli Brickhandler in here, famously. So yeah, I would agree. Like the failures of to acknowledge more of the transfer thing. Although maybe we should appreciate that, because that's seemingly all they acknowledged, or not they, but the greater they acknowledged last year was Ohio State bringing in all of these transfers. So maybe it's nice that people just acknowledge Ohio State for the homegrown program that it actually is.
My next one is, are you bullish on Ohio State, or are you not bullish on Ohio State? And they have Ohio State number 3 in their preseason rankings, behind Texas, behind Penn State, being like the number 5 seed and losing the national semifinals. And we can get to that, or maybe not get to that in a minute. But then they did breakdowns of 12 position groups, and that's, sometimes splitting in from tackle and everything else. So 5 players nationally at 12 position groups, 60 players. Ohio State only had 4 players. Only had 4 players. I understand. Well, Kevin, there are 133 Division 1A teams. Well, nobody gives a crap about Kent State. I'm sorry. Nobody gives a crap about Akron. Sorry. Not sorry. For a team that you have in the top 3 nationally to only have 3 players on there, and there are other programs within the Big Ten who are not thought nearly as well as, you seem to have more. It just doesn't make sense. And of course, the 4 names in there were Carnell Tate, Max Clare, Carson Hinsman, and Caleb Downs. Where the hell is Sonny Styles? I don't necessarily understand. And I guess this was kind of for some draft eligible type stuff. If you mean to tell me that Sonny Styles isn't going to, be a scouts, like, total absolute, I keep wanting to use terms that, I don't know what Tom's tolerance for his show is for naughty talk, but I mean, there's going to be scouts that are going to be very excited about Sonny Styles. And I just think that it's one hand not knowing what the other hand is doing on there. And as well, shoot, we better just get a bunch of names, on this list so we can sell some magazines or something. But I mean, it seems like a real miss to me. Yeah,
and I was just looking for that whole thing because, yeah, they they do have it broken down at times between draft eligible, and then they have other lists of just everybody. But yeah, the sneak peek there. Uh, it does seem strange that you wouldn't have Sonny Styles in your top 5, knowing that linebackers aren't necessarily the most drafted position, and he's going to be one guy that everybody's going to know about. But yeah, I don't I can understand that issue that you've got there, and we'll see if Ethan Oniano can work his way into that one, because he's not part of the tackles. And
let's remember, Jeremiah Smith is not draft eligible yet, so don't freak out that he's not on that list. I mean, again, I needed probably to be a little more clear with my statement there, but again, Tony and I talked like yesterday. It's like, we need to go through the entire magazine, basically, and I'm like, I haven't read a book since like 1955. I mean, do you think I'm going to get through a magazine that quickly? So I went through it as quickly as possible, and I sent Tony my list of grievances, and he's like, God, you're just really pissed off. I'm like, always.
You give me a 200-page magazine to go through, you better believe I'm going to be angry about it, word for word. No, that's you took the assignment too literally, and that's your fault. My next one is that they don't have Ohio State among the top 10 offensive lines nationally, and I think the bulk of what they have returning is the offensive line. You're replacing your 2 tackles basically from the national championship game, but you're doing so with experienced players. And I think they might have them 3 teams in the top 10 from the Big Ten, Ohio State not one of them. I feel like the offensive line as a whole has kind of been slighted by this magazine, and maybe that's the way it's going to go for others as well, because it's easy to maybe ignore the interior, even though Carson Hinsman was the starting center in the playoffs last year for Ohio State, and was a starting center for Ohio State in 2023. I feel like he should be more well-known, or more known, and garner more respect, command more respect for the entire offensive line. So I think that's going to prove to be a miss, not having Ohio State in the top 10 offensive lines nationally.
Oh, I mean, and I had that kind of pointed out on my list too, and I'm pulling this so I can verify this thing. For everything that we can say, just to show that we don't, one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing with them. And again, just because you're draft eligible doesn't necessarily mean you could have non-draft eligible centers in there. Carson Hinsman, number 4 overall for draft eligible centers, but he's not on any of the top 3 teams in the Big Ten for offensive center. You have Logan Jones, Iowa. I'm rarely going to doubt Iowa offensive linemen. That's fine. Iapani Lalolu for Oregon, and then Pat Coogan for Indiana. I mean, that just feels like a lot of disrespect. I understand that Ohio State, after the 23 season, went out and picked up Seth McLaughlin to kind of solidify the position and see if maybe a move to guard would help Hinsman in his development, that he was not a center coming out of high school. That was not his natural position. I could sit there and say that some of his snaps still don't necessarily have a ton of velocity on them. I mean, there certainly are some issues, but I'm hard pressed to really think that Carson Hinsman is like maybe the 4th best center in the conference, and we're not even sure, because it only goes 3 deep, and he's not in the 3 deep, so he can't be any better than 4. Christ, he might be 6th. I mean, I don't know.
Well, he's not one of the top 8 centers in the nation, according to Lindy's either, and overall, not even draft worthy or draft eligible, just not one of the 8. And I think that will prove to be inaccurate as well. What's your next one?
My turn.
Yes.
If I told you that Illinois would have a quarterback ranked 6 spots higher than Julian Sayin, and that quarterback was named Luke Altmaier, who, when they play Rutgers, all bets are off. But normally, a team that is known for defense under Burt and everything else, you're going to sit there and tell me that Luke Altmaier, just based on having been in college for 9 years, is going to be the better quarterback by 6 spots, 11 to 17 over Julian Sayin? Again, we have not seen Julian Sayin in any critical moment. He's made a couple plays, but normally the extent of his playbook is get us the hell out of here. And that's really it. Um, he was, a lot of times putting it between the 2 and the 0 for James Peoples as they were trying to run out the clock, and we weren't getting an opportunity to see a lot. But I think 17 is I I would not put Julian Sayin as a top 7 national quarterback. Let's be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
that we don't know, but 17 feels really low, and it just feels like, well, we just need to diversify this stuff up so we can sit there and appease everybody. But you know who you're robbing? The world of intelligence, because Luke Altmaier is not 6 spots better than Julian Sayin. I'm sorry, and the reality is Illinois has had several sacks of doorknobs out there at quarterback. Luke Altmaier is pretty exciting compared to some of these other pretenders that have been there, but come on now.
The situation is either going to be that Julian Sayin is not any good or not good enough to start, in which case Luke Altmaier is a different stratosphere, or Julian Sayin is good enough, in which case his numbers are going to be better than Luke Altmaier's. So and again, as you said, Julian Sayin has not played. So if you just want to leave him off the list completely, but I think the idea that he could be on the list and also much further down than Luke Altmaier, I don't think historically that would play out for what a starting Ohio State quarterback does compared to what Luke Altmaier has done in his 15 years as a college quarterback. And last year, he struggled against the best teams, which is normal for quarterbacks. Now there's a bunch of pressure on Illinois to be a playoff team and on Luke Altmaier as well. And so we will see how he does under pressure. For the most part, like, he was good enough, but now does he need to start being a little bit better now that they are more well known? But again, just 7 points at Penn State, 9 points at Oregon. He needs to do better, and he's equipped to do better. So we'll see. Some of the other issues I had with the quarterbacks in the Big Ten that they have listed. The most accurate passer in the Big Ten, did you happen to see who they have listed for that?
I know they had something with Pillsbury throwaway Bryce Underwood or something, and I just was like, I'm done with it. I'm just done.
So they have Drew Aller as the most accurate quarterback in the Big Ten.
Like greens in regulation, he's going to get it between the sidelines. I mean,
and that's the thing, because as you look down the stretch, he completed 51% of his passes against Oregon, 59 against Southern Mississippi or Southern SMU, 52 against Boise State, 52 against Notre Dame, a whopping 60% against Ohio State. Accurate, most accurate is not something I would use to describe him. And I know we're clowning on him, and that's what it sounds like. I'm not doing that. I'm not trying to do that. If you're going to throw some superlatives on him, I've got to maybe clap back a little. And you mentioned one of the other superlatives. The strongest arm in the Big Ten belongs to Bryce Underwood. We will find out. We will see. I don't know that, maybe it's true. I don't know. We will get a chance to see it in action perhaps this year. Strongest arm is a nice tag, but I think you'd rather have most accurate, the highest completion percentage, rather than I can throw it the farthest. That did not suit Michigan well when that was Joe Milton
or Uncle Rico.
It's true.
I mean, he could throw it over the mountains, and he still didn't. I mean, still just driving around in a van.
Yeah, but if the coach would have put him in. My last one, Kevin, is, and really, I don't necessarily have a huge issue with it. I just would be surprised if this happens. Of their 3 all Big Ten teams, they've got first team, second team, and third team. The only Ohio State defensive lineman in there is Edric Houston, which, credit to you for putting Edric Houston as your second team defensive tackle. And we'll see. I think that's quite a projection. I would kind of be surprised if you don't see a Kenyatta Jackson or Bo Atkinson, or maybe even, Caden Curry is one of those guys making it in the top 3. And the Big Ten will do, the actual Big Ten conference will do a first team, second team, third team, and honorable mention. I'd be surprised if you didn't see some defensive ends or a defensive end on that list by the end of the season.
They do have Bear Alexander, third team for Oregon. He still has time to transfer 4 or 5 more times before postseason rankings come out. But yeah, that was kind of odd. Um, I'll dovetail off of that, and then I'll give my final one.
Yeah.
Again, sake of full disclosure, I have 13 on my list, and some of them Tony has taken or has gotten close enough to that I'm like, well, that satisfies that one or whatever. But oh, all right, it was here. It was again. There's just no real love. I mean, Lindy's does not believe that Ohio State defense will be any good. Apparently, no Knowles, all these random dudes, quote unquote. Whatever should Ohio State do? Get to number 3 in their overall rankings. So you have a quarterback who's number 17 in the nation, and then you have this defense that, okay, I mean, it fills in a little bit more once you go to conference. You get IGB and Jermaine Matthews on first team. You get Andrew Houston on second team, as you'd mentioned. Lorenzo Styles Jr. is third team, but there's just not the type of depth there. And let's be honest, the Big Ten, this isn't Big Two little, Big Two little 8 or anything like that during the 10-year war. The Big Ten is probably definitely deeper than it's been in past iterations, but it just feels like there's just a lot of lip service here when I'm sitting here and I'm just do this for a living. I don't know who some of these players are that they picked. I've never, ever heard these names. And I follow recruiting closely, and I certainly follow football closely. And I'm not going to name anybody because that's, we talk about clowning on somebody. I don't clown on people that could probably beat me up. So there are people watching like, well, you shouldn't clown on anybody there, fat boy. But, the point is that I'm not going to clown on a kid, even if he is making more in NIL than I will make in several years. My last one is, I'm just going through there. I mean, and I've got a lot of things that are on there about, I don't think that they gave Ohio State a lot of credit for their coordinator hires. I think that the Brian Hartline coordinator hire, I think there's still a big burden of proof that you're going to have there because they did this, they didn't do it. Matt Patricia, I mean, there seems to be some questions there, but honestly, I think when Ohio State hired Jim Knowles initially, it's like, yeah, well, can he replicate it? But my last one is running backs.
Mm-hmm.
No James Peoples on the top 25 of national running backs. CJ Donaldson's there at 21. That means Penn State and Notre Dame each have 2 backs ahead of Ohio State's first back. And you could sit there and say part of that is, well, we just loved Quinshawn and Trevion Henderson so much that we just think they got all of this to kind of fill. But it didn't stop them from putting Justice Haynes, who transferred from Alabama to Michigan, at number 7, and we've not seen woo from Justice Haynes yet. And it's not necessarily like, well, we just know that the Michigan offense, how many G's in Juggernaut? I mean, we haven't seen it yet, and you're trying to tell me that a 1-2 punch of Peoples and Donaldson, without even talking about Bo Jackson, whoever Ohio State may have as its third back, can't get anybody inside the top 20? No, I don't buy it at all. In fact, that's what I say to that.
I will say that I think Justice Haynes is a little bit high as well on the list. 448 yards rushing last year, 168 yards as a freshman. To have him that high again, there's a lot of projections in this magazine, and that's fine because that's what the magazines are supposed to do. You're projecting so much of this. So I don't want to discourage that, but it just some of these things just these are things that will just stand out. So we talk about them. That's all. And really, that's all the magazines are there for us to talk about.
They give us stuff to talk about, stuff to like take on the flight to Vegas and not read on the way to Big Ten Media Days. For me to like sit there and spill a drink on at some point and, and then be like, well, I'm not buying a new one. I'll just tell you that. I didn't want to buy the first one.
No. And it's good for reference, and college football is right around the corner, as you guys know. Shoot, as we are recording this, we are less than 3 months out. There should be like a daily countdown on this show.
Are you sure about that count, Tom?
Well, I'm just looking at the date on my computer and remembering that Ohio State plays on like August 30th. So we're almost there. We will be in Las Vegas in about 6 weeks. We'll be leaving in about 6 weeks, I think, almost to the day as we're recording this, or 7 weeks, maybe. Anyway,
6 weeks feels really sudden, but it wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah.
I mean, and how many days until we're standing out in front of the team hotel on the greatest day on the Ohio State beat, hotel check-in?
Well, we know, and this is other breaking news of sorts that broke this week. Camp kicks off on July 31st. That's a Thursday. Maybe a few days after that, maybe less than a week after that, the camp check-in, the hotel check-in day will be in a tradition unlike any other, because nobody else would do it. That's all I'll say there. So we do want to thank you all for being with us. Before we go, I just want to remind you that Grateful Griddle, if you're planning your next event, make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle. Columbus's favorite food truck is serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at gratefulgriddle.com. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the thumbs up. We would appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel if you've not yet done so. Of course, right now is a fantastic time to join up at Buckeye Huddle because we have official visits going on every week. Camps start this week, so we're going to be talking about those things there. And of course, we're always talking about the team as well. So you got Mark Givler and Berm doing the recruiting stuff, talking with them, and there's a lot going on. So find us at buckeyehuddle.com. Sign up. We'll see you there. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.